Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I am your host, Samuel. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing to diagnostic lab, you name it. You will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 5% performer within your role in sales, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I am your host, Samuel, and today we have with us two great guests, go by the name of Zed and Clark, and they are actually founders of a company called Trackable Med. They help businesses grow, specifically physician practices and companies in the medtech space. And the way they do it is very interesting. It's very fascinating, and it's something you definitely want to hear. I love coming across really unique, nuanced businesses, and these guys are the definition of that. And again, for those out there that are interested in growth, that have a practice, or interested in growth, that are part of a company, and they're trying to grow an area, you want to hear everything these guys have to say. As always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast, and I really do hope you enjoy part one of this interview. Hello, Zed and Clark. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent.
I'm doing well. Good to see you again, Samuel.
That's what I love to hear. Good to see you guys again. Okay, so let's take it from the top. Why don't maybe take a minute or two each. Tell us who you guys are and what you guys do.
All right. I'm Zed Williamson, CEO of Trackable Med. Trackable Med is a company that I started about 11 years ago out of a frustration for an advertising industry that does not hold itself accountable to an actual result. The company is rooted in an understanding of neuroscience and behavior change, and people hire us, or I should say private practices and med tech hire Trackable Med to either create demand for specific therapies or treatments for patients, or to capture demand. So practices that are having a hard time dealing with the load of patients, they'll hire us, bring in that patient demand.
Got it.
And my name's Clark Wiederhold. I'm Chief Sales Officer for Trackable Med, and I've been in sales and sales leadership positions for the last 16 plus years, something like that. Worked in a number of different industries. I did not start out in healthcare or med device, but ended up there for a little over 10 years. And that's where I ran into Trackable Med and Zed and the team and the business here. I'm here today with Trackable Med because I honestly felt the impact of the business on my own sales territory. I happened to have a client that this physician's numbers started blowing up. And so I walked in, I had a really good relationship. I was like, hey, what's going on? I mean, I know I'm really good, but what's really happening? And he goes, I'm working with this company and they happen to be headquartered right outside of my territory. So I reached out to Zed and got connected. And it was just one of those things where some other counterparts started leveraging them as well. You push them with other clients as I moved into management and leadership role. Their influence spread around across our organization. And not only did I see and feel the impact for the clients that we worked with, but also for our own business in medtech. And so a few years ago, when Zed was looking to take scale to the next level and we were having some discussions, it just made a lot of sense. And the move was easy for me.
That is excellent. That's excellent. And just so we have a general idea, what's your audience like? How many people are you guys serving, or accounts are you guys serving?
We have about 140 private practice customers. Wow. All across the United States, different specialties. And you would basically categorize them as private practice specialties who are interested in staying independent. There are others that hire us, but that's really the person who they have a goal. They want to do more. They may say something like, I would do more of this procedure, except I just don't have the patience. If someone says that, that's likely someone who would hire us to help them achieve a very purposeful business for their practice.
So just so we're clear, you guys work with providers that are private practice, and you guys work with, private practice and medical tech companies. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get a little bit into that. But before we get into that, when it comes to private practice, what stage are you working with providers on? When they just start out or they need to have been in business for a little while, where do you guys kind of jump in?
So there's a couple The answer is not singular. One of our most favorite things in the world is when someone is starting from scratch because maybe they are leaving a group they're unhappy with. So you have that one person who realizes they were hauling most of the load in the group, practice, and they said, enough of this, I'm going to go start my own practice, and they hire us to help them create something very strong and profitable quickly. The kind of thing we do for that customer, people would say it's not possible, but we get practices, them seeing the patients they want to see, and profitable within months. So not years, but months.
You're literally planting ideas in people's minds right now.
Yeah, it's so gratifying, and it gives us, because the data is all raw, right? And you don't have interference from referral networks that have been there. In fact, usually most of these situations, those referral networks, they either don't exist because it's brand new in a new market, or they were severed because of a bad partner relationship or something like that. Right. But you really get to see the impact of the full team plan go into action because their patients aren't coming from anywhere else.
There's another group of people where they may be in practice and they've decided that they're busy, but they're not busy with the patients they want to be busy with. And they may have been in practice for years. Maybe they're getting closer to retirement. They're, 8 years away from retiring, and they still want to treat patients, but they're not looking to, work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., be on call all the time. They want to focus in, have a healthy business, but also a healthy life outside of business.
Okay, so let's talk about the med tech companies now. How do you guys work with them?
So med tech is one of my favorite things in the world. And the reason is med tech is literally bringing the most amazing solutions to patient populations. And there's this little barrier in between that called private practice. And so what happens is, earlier I mentioned that the company is rooted in neuroscience, and it's really about behavior and behavior change. In reality, advertising, marketing, when it's done correctly, all we're doing is changing behavior. Something's happening out there right now. We want something slightly different to happen. So MedTech will hire us to create patient demand for a very specific procedure. This does one of a couple things. One, patients learn that there may be an opportunity to feel a lot better a lot sooner than going through the typical bureaucracy of healthcare, spending years in private practice and getting maybe referred to a specialist. This gets them to a solution quicker. What it also does is it gets patients asking for procedures, and this drives behavior change at the practice level. If someone has been slightly against shifting from their current treatment algorithms or protocols, that's to be expected. There's a lot of biases that tell us that that's how humans are: status quo bias, commitment bias, omission bias, all these things that keep people doing what they're already doing. However, a patient going into the practice and asking over and over again, hey, do you do the ABC procedure, actually will shock that person into being more aware that maybe they need to learn or potentially offer a different therapy.
Got it.
Yeah. Think of it this way, Samuel. Industry, med device, med tech, biotech, whatever terminology or sub-segment you fit into, we do a really good job. The industry does a really good job of, professional ed, training, internal training, peer-to-peer training from technique and everything. But traditionally, the piece that they haven't taken ownership of is patient education. And they have a little bit, right? But I'm talking well beyond brochures that are available and, kind of literature that can be put up around an office. That's stage one. But really emotionally connecting with the issues that patients that they help fix are dealing with, and letting those folks know, like Zed mentioned, that, hey, you may not have to live this way. And as opposed to hoping that Bob's nephew or neighbor recommends one of the providers that happens to believe what you believe as a company, you can take ownership of steering patients towards providers that believe what you believe. And if they're a good candidate, they're going to treat them that way through their algorithm.
Okay, so I'm going to be frank. Some people might be listening to this and thinking this sounds a little bit too good to be true. Telling me these guys can magically get the patients I want to see or the procedures I want to do, get me doing them, or get the patients that I want to see, get me seeing them, regardless the industry, whether it be biotech, medical device, medical equipment, you name it. Okay, so the burning question that everybody wants to know, and of course you guys can only share what you can. How are you guys doing this?
So it's a good question. First of all, you're right to say it's too good to be true. And in most cases, it is, because the industry of advertising and marketing is horrible. It sucks. It's built on a complete foundation of no accountability to actual results. And I'll give you a quick history of advertising.
Please do. No, we actually want to know this.
So if you go back 100 years, copywriters were brilliant. It was all based in psychology, behavior. You go look at an ad that was written in the late 1800s, you wanted to buy the product. And it's because it was solving a problem. It was emotionally connecting. They knew a lot of what we know now, and we know more now. So it's silly we don't do this anymore. But what destroyed the advertising industry is awards and college for marketing, honestly. I'm sorry to say this, but if you have a degree in advertising and marketing, unfortunately, you've learned a lot of stuff you need to unlearn. I'm sure that'll make a lot of people happy.
You're just turning people off from the podcast. What's going on?
That's right. Sorry.
Okay, so wait a minute. You said awards, and I want you to speak to both. A little bit more about why getting a marketing degree is probably not advantageous as people might assume it is. But first, talk to us about these awards. What do you mean awards have killed the advertising industry?
So back in the late 50s, 60s, they started giving awards for creativity in advertising. And as an advertising agency, you get to charge a lot of money to create messaging. Let's say a TV commercial, all these different ads, digital ads. You charge a lot of money to create that stuff. You tend to get hired more if your work has been quote unquote award winning. The problem with award winning is the awards are not given on results or outcomes that the commercial created. They're given on the opinion from an artistic standpoint. So if you want to have, a beautiful woman, twirling in a bed of daisies with really nice music in the background and a single word call, that says ooh or whatever, it might win an award, but not a single patient went and got your service.
Is this a governing body that gives out these awards?
There's different advertising. That's right. Okay. Different associations. And here's the thing. The more awards you win as an ad agency, the more likely you're going to get new clients. And imagine a huge company. If you're deciding on who to hire, are you motivated to hire someone who's got the most awards or not? The most awards, right? But the problem is they're awarding the opposite of effectiveness. So that's one big issue with the industry is let's do a bunch of focus groups. Let's ask questions and create advertising that's actually not designed to do any behavior changing. We all like it. We can pat ourselves on the back that it's pretty and cute or amusing. But in reality, the patient in misery sat there during the commercial or saw it online, and then they went on their life as normal. They did not do anything different. I do not call that success. And so that really impacted the industry. I guess the advertising industry isn't really fond of us because we will push back against the idea of, hey, let me create a commercial that everybody loves and is proud to put an award up on the bookshelf. We don't want that. We want results. Now, results come from behavior. Neuroscience is known. Human behavior is predictable. So if you understand the biases that drive today's behavior, that means you also know how to shift that behavior. And you can create messaging that does specifically that. And if that's your goal, then it can be done.
So let me ask you this then. What, and this is probably on people's minds right now. How did you catch this? Or is this something that's just, it's well known in advertising that there's a big disconnect? And if it's not, how did you catch it? And, what allows you to say, it's not being done correctly. We got a better way.
So I'll tell you exactly the story how I caught it. I used to be a copywriter years ago in the advertising world, and I actually won some awards back in the day. I wrote copy that was amusing. People laughed. They thought it was fun. And I probably had a little bit of an ego about it. I created a piece that was targeted towards an audience that happened to be the same demographic that my wife was at the time. We were dating at the time. And about 3 seconds into this message, she started talking to me about some other thing. And I'm looking at her going, wait a second. I just told you I had blood, sweat, and tears over this. This is really important. Oh, no, that's cute. That's cute. And I went, oh my God, she does not care at all about this. And I went a little insane on a deep dive into human behavior. And that put me on a path of understanding sales. And I started applying things when I was working in the industry, in media, and saw immediate difference. And so everything was so different than what everyone else was experiencing. I said, this is how it has to be. We can't, I couldn't feel good about the idea of someone investing their money in their small business into doing something that wasn't creating the outcome they were looking for.
Got it. So when you realized there need to be a shift, was your copywriting more effective, and were you still getting recognized for the results you were bringing in, or did people stop giving you awards?
Oh, I never won an award after that. No, never again.
Wow.
But people paid me a lot more money for the results that they got.
You were able to bring in.
And I decided to just, then I did that for some years, and then I decided to start this company about 11 years ago.
Which makes sense. Yeah.
It was, it's interesting because the reason I mentioned the thing about college before. College is great. You should go to college. The joke I made about getting a marketing degree is they are going to review things like Coca-Cola, and you're going to advertise a private practice who helps a patient get out of lower back pain way different than you are Coca-Cola. And college does not teach that. They just say, do this because this is good. The thing is, it's the same thing with cars. We don't have to explain to somebody what a car is. They already understand that. What advertising has to do is get you interested in the model, so you go buy that model. In medical, you have to get someone to understand that there's a solution they didn't know existed. So imagine if there was no cars and the idea of a car was not even close to your mind. How would you write the commercial to get someone interested in buying a car? A lot different than what college teaches you, but that's what we have to do in healthcare.
Got it. Okay. So you've sold us on what qualifies you guys to do it differently, and because you guys get good results, great results. But again, how are you guys doing it? And share as much as you can.
Sure. So early on, I like to think of business as a bucket with a bunch of holes in it. There's no such thing as one specific light switch that you turn on and off to make a campaign effective. There's many variables that create failure. If we emotionally connect to someone, that's going to drive a behavior change. The reason is something called the reticular activating system, or the RAS. If anyone out there who's driving around, they've probably passed or followed a car sometime throughout today. I bet it's hard to think of a single one that they have. And the reason is there's no emotional connection to it. Unless they cut you off, then you can be like, that jerk in the blue Ford,
Right.
But if there's no emotional connection, we are designed to filter it out. Our brains were awesome at keeping us alive thousands and thousands of years ago. Walmarts and stoplights did not exist then. Mm-hmm. Today, we have to take into account how our brains are built. So that first thing, reticular activating system, messaging that connects emotionally. Then we have to understand negativity bias. All these advertising messages that tell people how great things can be are actually designed to fail. And you go, well, Zed, that sounds crazy. Why would we not tell people what the benefit would be? Because they're not wired for that. Hope is not the most motivational thing in the world. Loss aversion is. So let's talk to the person about their pain. Let's connect on an emotional level so they understand. They start nodding their head. Hey, these people get us.
Right.
And then let's speak emotionally to them so that we can motivate their behavior. A guy by the name of Jonathan Haidt came up with a pretty cool way to think about the brain, and it's referred to as the elephant and the rider.
So make sure you tune in next week to hear the rest of this story with Zed and Clark. The elephant and the rider, it's pretty interesting what he speaks to. And that's going to be in part 2 next week. This is fascinating. What these guys are doing in the medtech space, what they're doing for providers, what they're doing for companies. It's truly innovative stuff. So make sure, again, you come back and you tune in next week. You might be listening to this and you might be someone that wants to get into the industry, or maybe you're in the industry and you're thinking, I want to have my best year ever. We're only in April, so much can happen. Hiring is strong. Your performance can literally change overnight, and overnight meaning 3 to 6 months. But what I'm saying is there's enough time to make significant impacts in the results you want to see this year. So if this is you, if these are things that have crossed your mind, make sure you visit evolveyoursuccess.com and follow the prompts. You can select either attain a medical sales role or improve your sales performance. Either track you take will lead you to opportunities and resources that can transform your experience in your career and transform your experience in the career you might want to get into. As always, thank you for listening to the Medical Sales Podcast. Make sure you tune in next week for part 2 with Zed and Clark. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a couple programs that show you exactly how to break into the medical sales industry, become a top-performing medical sales professional, and also how to masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews.